If you think you already know what mindfulness is, there's a good chance you're practicing it the wrong way. And maybe that's exactly why your life continues with the same cycles of anxiety, distraction, and that constant feeling of emotional exhaustion, even after so many attempts to calm down. Today, I'm not here to invite you to imagine flower fields, nor to teach you to sit in lotus position, repeat mantras, or visualize a white light around your body, because what I'm going to show you goes against all of that. What you're about to discover is the raw truth about mindfulness, something few people have the courage to say, because it's not comfortable, it's not pretty, and definitely, it's not what most want to hear. Real mindfulness is a confrontation. It's the exact moment when you stop running away and face the one thing you've been trying to escape your whole life, the now. While many techniques teach you to try to relax or calm the mind, what you really need is radical presence, the kind that makes you feel the ground under your feet, the weight of air in your lungs, the whirlwind of thoughts you've been ignoring, and most importantly, what's happening inside you at this very second. If you have the courage to go to the end of this video, I guarantee you one thing: you will never look at the practice of mindfulness the same way again. And maybe, just maybe, this is exactly the turning point you've been needing. The big mistake that's keeping you trapped in anxiety and distraction. Mindfulness is not relaxation. It's not an exercise to become calm. It's not a mental escape to an imaginary place of peace. Mindfulness is reconnection with the raw reality of the now. And maybe that's the first real shock you need to feel today. Because the big mistake that keeps so many people trapped in anxiety and distraction is exactly believing that the purpose of mindfulness is to generate comfort. How many times have you tried to meditate just to feel lighter? How many times have you closed your eyes, taken a deep breath, and deep down only wanted one thing: to escape discomfort? An anxious mind does exactly that all the time. It transforms even presence practices into another attempt at emotional escape, a sophisticated attempt, disguised as technique, but which deep down is the same old programming. How can I not feel what I'm feeling? And that's precisely where the trap lies. True mindfulness is not an emotional painkiller. It's a direct gateway to everything you've spent years trying to avoid. When you sit, breathe, and try to calm down, but do it out of resistance to what's happening inside you, what you're actually practicing is reinforcing the distraction cycle. Because anxiety doesn't arise from what's outside of you. It arises from your constant attempt not to look at what's present now. While you try to control the mind, it keeps dragging you everywhere except to the only place where transformation can happen, the present moment. And here comes the part that might hurt to hear, but needs to be said. You don't need calm, you need radical presence. Anxiety is a side effect of a mind that refuses to remain in the now. It's like a body that goes without air for hours, fighting for a breath that never arrives. As long as you keep believing that mindfulness is a technique to reduce symptoms, you'll stay trapped in the same old dynamic, trying to control the uncontrollable, running away from discomfort, and creating even more tension in the process. Maybe that's why, even after so many videos, books, therapies, you still find yourself lost in racing thoughts, anticipating what might go wrong tomorrow, or dwelling on what happened yesterday. The cycle is simple, but devastating. The mind feels discomfort. You try to run. The escape creates more discomfort, so you try to escape again, until everything becomes a tangled web of unending thoughts, short breathing, tight chest, and that question that seems to never have an answer. Why can't I have peace? And the answer is straightforward: because you're still trying to achieve peace without facing the truth. And the truth is that peace doesn't arise from the absence of discomfort. It arises from the decision to stop running. That's why, deep down, every technique that promises you quick relief but teaches you to keep avoiding the now only leads you deeper into the same labyrinth. You might get a few minutes of relief. You might distract yourself with music, a video, forced breathing. But the energetic field of anxiety remains there, pulsing, waiting for the next trigger to pull you back. Real mindfulness begins when you decide to face what you're trying to avoid. When you sit, breathe, and instead of trying to change what you feel, you simply observe. No judgment, no attempt to control, no wishing it would pass faster. And here's where the field begins to shift. Not because you forced a calm state, but because for the first time, you interrupted the resistance cycle. The mind, used to running, will try to pull you back to autopilot. It will tell you that you need to think about something else, solve some problem, plan, protect yourself. But if in this exact moment, you can simply stay, even for a few seconds, witnessing everything, even the anxiety itself, something begins to give. Because the only thing that truly sustains the distraction cycle is your refusal to remain. As long as you keep wanting to solve anxiety with more thoughts, it will keep controlling you, because that's what it does. It hypnotizes you with the future. It traps you in the past. It makes you believe you need to run, when in truth, all you need is to stop. Maybe while you're hearing this, your mind has already started searching for the next distraction. Maybe it's already thinking about what comes next, the next task, the next video, the next problem to solve. But before moving on, do a small experiment right now. Breathe and feel exactly what's happening inside you. This instant, notice the restlessness. Notice the attempt to escape. Notice the impulse to want everything to pass quickly. Just observe without changing anything. Because it's precisely here, in this exact second, that your real mindfulness practice begins. And if you continue, in the next topic, I will show you why your mind has been programmed from the very beginning to do exactly the opposite of this. How your mind is programmed to run from the now and how to stop it today. There is an invisible but extremely powerful mechanism that governs most of your emotional life without you even noticing. Your mind was programmed to run from the now, not out of malice, not out of defect, but out of a survival instinct that, for thousands of years, ensured you and your ancestors were always prepared to deal with threats. The problem is that the world changed, but your mind still operates with the same ancient code. From the moment you wake up, it scans everything around looking for possible dangers. It projects you into the future, creating scenarios that may never happen, just so you can anticipate. Or it pulls you back to the past, recalling painful situations as a way to prevent them from repeating. And while it does this, it steals from you the only place where life really happens, the now. Perhaps you're hearing these words, and at the same time, you might already have caught yourself thinking about something else. Maybe about the next task you need to do, maybe about a message you haven't replied to, or even about a problem that seems to be waiting for you right after this video ends. Do you notice? The escape is automatic. The mind, conditioned by years of emotional repetition, learns to associate the present moment with something insufficient, something that must be overcome, solved, or avoided. That's why when you try to concentrate, it drags you into what if. When you try to relax, it reminds you of something that went wrong last week. When you try to feel your body, it fills you with an avalanche of thoughts demanding immediate action. And the cruelest part is that the more you try to force the mind to stay, the more it escapes. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers. The name for this is the unconscious mental loop. A cycle of activation where stimulus, thought, and emotion feed off each other automatically. For example, imagine that, while watching this video, your phone goes off with a notification. Without thinking, you grab your phone, open the message, and within seconds, You're emotionally involved with another matter. Then when you try to return to the video, you realize your attention is no longer the same. Part of your mind stayed behind, with the message, with the content of the notification, or with the feeling it generated. And so, without noticing, you build a pattern of absence that follows you in absolutely everything you do. That's why so many people feel chronic fatigue, even after a full night's sleep. Their minds are never resting. They are always jumping from past to future, from fear to desire, from worry to expectation, like a web browser with dozens of tabs open, running simultaneously. But here comes the turn. This loop only continues while you remain unaware of it. The first step to breaking this cycle is starting to notice, with honesty, how many times a day your mind drags you away from where you really are. And maybe now, while you hear this, you begin to notice. As I speak about the present, maybe part of you is already wondering whether you'll really be able to apply this later, or recalling the moments you tried and failed, or even mentally making a small list of other techniques you plan to test. This is the automatic programming in action. But the good news is that this programming can be broken. And the first move is this one happening right now. The moment you notice how absent you've been, because what keeps the loop running is precisely the lack of awareness of it. When you begin to notice clearly the moments when your mind attempts to take you away, something very powerful happens. You gain a fraction of a second of choice. Maybe it still tries to pull you, maybe thoughts still come, but just the act of noticing already begins to create a space between impulse and reaction. And it's exactly in that space that the energetic field begins to change. Don't expect the mind to quiet down suddenly. That won't happen, at least not immediately. But the simple act of observing the escape is already a cut in the cycle. When you notice that the mind is wandering and you choose gently to bring your focus back to the breath, to your feet touching the ground, or to the sounds around, you are, in practice, reprogramming your entire nervous system. What seemed like a small decision is actually a powerful energetic command that the field around you begins to register. And the more often you make this return movement, the easier it will become. Maybe at first you'll need to do this dozens of times a day, and that's okay. It's not a sign of failure. On the contrary, it's proof that you're beginning to recover control of your own attention. The mind will resist. It will try to convince you that you need to think about 1,000 things at once. It will try to pull you back into the automatic cycle. But every time you choose to remain, even if just for a few seconds, you're breaking a pattern years old. And maybe this is the beginning of the greatest transformation you've ever experienced. Because in the next topic, you will understand why true mindfulness has nothing to do with comfort, and why. Only when you decide to face what you're trying to avoid does real change begin. Real mindfulness is confrontation, not comfort. There is a dangerous illusion being sold out there, a distorted idea that makes many people believe that mindfulness is synonymous with relaxation, with lightness, with moments of peace where everything feels calm and under control. But the truth is that real mindfulness, the true one, is everything except comfortable. Mindfulness is not about creating a safe environment inside your mind. It's about opening your eyes and finally seeing what has always been there, waiting for you, just beneath the surface. Being truly present means looking at the thoughts you've spent your entire life trying to avoid. It means facing those heavy emotions, the fears you hide, the internal dialogues you repeat in silence, but never have the courage to admit to anyone. It's about sitting, breathing, and feeling your body trembling with anxiety without running away. It's about noticing that anger you disguised as rationality, that sadness you hid behind a smile, and letting it all come to the surface without rushing to distract yourself with your phone, without looking for an escape valve, without trying to numb yourself with some activity. Mindfulness is the opposite of escape, and maybe that's why it's so hard to truly practice. When you are really present, what shows up first, almost always, is what was repressed. That discomfort in your chest that you try not to feel, that tension in your back that you've gotten used to calling fatigue, that lump in your throat that you swear is just a physical reflex, but in truth, carries emotional stories you never wanted to process. That's why many people give up meditating after just a few tries. Because when they close their eyes, when they stop distracting themselves, what surfaces is not peace. It's truth. And the truth, most of the time, hurts. But it's this pain, this initial discomfort, that marks the beginning of true liberation. When you allow yourself to stay, even with the discomfort, when you observe the fear without wanting to push it away, when you feel the anxiety without fighting it, something begins to shift inside you. The field of resistance that for years was being fed begins to lose strength. The energy that was once frozen starts to flow. And it's at this exact point where most people run away that the real practice begins. Because as long as you're seeking comfort, you're only reinforcing the escape cycle. But when you accept the confrontation, when you decide to feel everything that needs to be felt, the game changes. Mindfulness is not a remedy to relieve symptoms. It's a doorway that forces you to go through everything you've avoided for years. And the more you choose to stay, the more your body, your mind, and the field around you begin to recognize this new frequency. You stop being someone trying to control life and become someone who witnesses, who observes, who breathes, even in the middle of the internal storm. And it's precisely because of that over time, true peace arrives. Not as temporary relief, but as a natural consequence of someone who decided, once and for all, to stop running. And maybe, right now, you're feeling this inside you. A small resistance, a desire to close the video, to leave this topic for later, to look for some distraction. But if you can, just for a few more minutes, choose to stay. Because in the next topic, I'm going to show you the next step of this journey, how to enter the witness state and finally break the cycle of suffering that has followed you for so long. The witness state, how to observe without judgment and break the suffering cycle. Perhaps the biggest challenge after deciding to stop running is learning to stay without fighting what arises. And this is where one of the most transformative concepts of true mindfulness comes in, the witness state. Being in the witness state doesn't mean becoming cold, indifferent, or distant from your own emotions. It also doesn't mean ignoring what you feel or pretending nothing is happening. Quite the opposite. Being a witness means being so present, so conscious, that you're able to observe everything without diving into the mental drama. It's as if you're standing on the riverbank, just watching the current flow by. Thoughts, emotions, memories. Everything keeps flowing, but you, for the first time, choose not to jump into the water. As long as you react, as long as you judge, as long as you try to push the thought away or force a different emotion, you keep feeding the suffering cycle. The mind is a master at creating stories around everything it feels. A simple physical discomfort becomes a sign that something is wrong. A negative thought becomes proof that you're regressing. A heavy emotion becomes a reason for more guilt and self-criticism. And the more you judge, the more you reinforce the pain. This is where the witness state becomes a turning point. Being a witness is looking at fear and simply noting fear is here without concluding that it means something bad. It's noticing sadness and simply recognizing there's sadness present without seeking an explanation, without blaming yourself for feeling it. It's feeling your body trembling and simply observing my body is reacting without entering the story that something is out of your control. At first, it may feel strange. A part of you will want to question, but if I don't react, if I don't fight, won't this get worse? The mind has been trained to believe that suffering only stops when you do something to fix it. But the truth is that most of the pain you feel doesn't come from the original emotion. It comes from resistance, from the struggle, from judgment. The emotion itself is just energy, something that moves if you let it. But what keeps the pain alive is the story you create around it. The witness state is the space where that story stops gaining strength, and the magic happens right there. When you observe without reacting, the field around that emotion starts to dissolve. The load that once seemed unbearable begins to lose density. The body, which was in alert mode, starts to relax. The mind, which used to spin in circles, begins to find silence. And the most interesting part is that you don't need hours of practice to start feeling this. Sometimes, a single moment of genuine presence is enough for the suffering cycle to begin to unravel. So on the next time anxiety shows up, or sadness catches you off guard, or that negative thought comes on strong, do this. Pause, breathe, observe. Don't try to change. Don't try to understand. Don't try to run. Just stay there with whatever is present. Feel the weight in your chest, but without falling into despair. Notice the racing thoughts, but without trying to erase them. Just observe, as if you were watching clouds passing in the sky. And if by chance, in the middle of this, you notice that you've started to drift again, that's okay. Return, start again. The practice is not about never getting distracted. It's about noticing and choosing to come back. Every time you do this, you're not just changing your emotional state. You're reprogramming your mind, your nervous system, and the energetic field around you. And maybe, if you have the courage to sustain this presence, even if just for a few minutes, you'll already start to feel that the cycle that once seemed unbreakable begins to give way. In the next topic, I'm going to show you exactly how to take this next step and truly experience the state of presence that shifts your frequency instantly. The turning point, the real presence, experience that immediately changes your frequency. There is a moment that cannot be taught, nor anticipated, nor forced. It's the moment when suddenly you stop fighting what you feel and something inside you simply surrenders to the now. This is the true turning point. There are no fireworks. It doesn't come with sudden euphoria. Most of the time it's when it's silent, subtle, almost imperceptible. But those who feel it know. It's as if, for a brief second, the mind stopped running, the body stopped resisting, and a strange clarity, almost unknown, filled the space that was once occupied by tension. Perhaps what surprises you the most is the fact that, in that instant, life outside remains exactly the same. The problems still exist. The bills are still in the same place. The unresolved situations are still waiting. But inside you, something has changed. And this change is not intellectual. It's not a logical conclusion. It's not an insight you write down in a notebook. It's a frequency shift. Your breathing suddenly becomes deeper. The muscles that were in a state of alert begin to relax, and without you having to make an effort, the heart that previously seemed to race now beats at a different pace. And most importantly, your perception of the moment expands. It's as if you realized for the first time that you are here, truly. Feeling the air going in and out, noticing the sounds around you without trying to interpret them, sensing the contact of your feet with the ground as if it were the first time you noticed it. And for a few seconds, the cycle of repetitive thoughts simply loses its strength. Not because you defeated it, but because, and for the first time, you stop feeding it. This state, which seems simple but is incredibly powerful, is what neuroscience calls spontaneous autonomic regulation. The nervous system, which was in survival mode, begins to shift into the state of safety and presence. Cortisol levels, the stress hormone, begin to drop. The production of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine subtly increases, and the vibrational field around you starts reorganizing the information it was holding. All of this happens in seconds, without needing any elaborate technique, without years of meditation, without needing a perfect environment, just with one real choice, made by you, now. Perhaps, as you hear these words, you're already starting to feel this small internal shift. Perhaps you notice that, just by breathing more consciously, something inside you is already changing its tone. And if you want, you can do a small experiment with me right now. Pause for a moment, leave your body as it is. Don't change your posture, just feel the breath. Notice the air coming in and going out. Feel the contact of your body with the place where you're sitting or standing. Notice the sounds around you without trying to assign meaning. Just listen. Notice any sensation in your chest, your stomach, your legs, wherever it may be. Now, choose for a few seconds not to fight any of it. Don't try to change the breath. Don't try to force a state of calm. Just witness. And if any thought arises, just observe, as if it were a cloud passing by, without clinging, without following the thought. Just stay here, present with what is. Feel this lightness that begins to appear, this reduction in tension, this inner pause. This is the beginning of the frequency shift. And the more often you do this throughout the day, the more natural this state will become. In the next topic, I'm going to show you what happens inside your energetic field when you're able to sustain this state for just 1 minute of true presence, and how, in such a short time, your reality already begins to respond. The invisible result of 1 minute of true presence. Most people believe that real change is only possible after weeks of practice, months of effort, or years of meditation. But what almost no one tells you is that in just 1 minute of true presence, your frequency already begins to shift. Perhaps from the outside, nothing seems different. If someone were observing you at this very moment, they would probably say you're just sitting, breathing, still, but inside, at levels the human eye cannot see, a silent and powerful movement is happening. Your biochemistry begins to respond. Cortisol, which just seconds ago kept your body in alert mode, starts to drop. Brain waves, once agitated, begin to change pattern. The nervous system, which was operating in defense mode, starts shifting into the safety state, that state where the body understands that, finally, it can lower its guard. But it's not just the physical body that reacts. The vibrational field around you feels it too. Your thoughts, which moments ago felt like a chaotic flow, begin to slow down. Your emotional field, which carried dense layers of fear, worry, and anticipation, begins to open space for something new. And you know the most interesting part? You don't need to believe in this. You don't need to understand the scientific details behind it, because the body responds. Anyway, it's as if behind the entire story you've been telling yourself, there was a silent intelligence just waiting for you to pause for 1 minute so it could start to act. And maybe at this very moment, as you hear these words, you're already noticing small signs of this change. Maybe a lightness in your hands, maybe a relief in your chest, maybe a strange sense of inner silence, as if, for the first time in a long time, the mind had paused. This is the invisible result. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't bring an explosive feeling of euphoria. It arrives quietly, like a gentle breeze that begins to move the deepest layers of your energy. And when you can sustain this for just 60 seconds, your entire information field begins to reorganize what was misaligned. The thoughts that once seemed uncontrollable start to lose strength. That sense of urgency that something needs to be solved immediately starts to fade. What was out of focus begins to gain clarity. And most importantly, the universe begins to hear a new frequency. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to what you say, to what you want, or to what you dream. It responds to what you sustain, vibrationally, with real emotional presence. That's why, even if you practice for just 1 minute, if that minute is of true surrender, it already leaves an energetic trace in your field, a new trail, a new signal, and the more you repeat this movement, the more this new frequency strengthens. What was once a rare state starts to become a familiar space, and what once seemed impossible to change begins, silently, to give way. Perhaps, until now, you've never paused for a full minute, just to be with what you feel, without wanting to change, without wanting to run, without wanting to understand. If that's the case, I want to make you an invitation. When this video ends, don't rush to the next one. Don't open another app. Stay for 60 seconds. Close your eyes, feel your breath, listen to the sounds around you, and just remain. Because as simple as it may seem, it's exactly in this small space of time that your field begins to create the new. We've reached the end of our journey, and maybe now you can feel what once seemed like just a distant theory. Real mindfulness is not a technique, it's a life decision, a choice that happens every second between running away or staying. Today you've seen that anxiety, distraction, and the suffering cycle only continue because, until now, you've been reacting instead of witnessing. And that, in just 1 minute of true presence, your frequency already begins to shift. From now on, the invitation is simple but profound. In the next 24 hours, choose at least once to pause, breathe, and just be. If this message made sense, if something inside you switched a key, leave in the comments, "I choose presence now." That way I'll know that you stayed until the end and that you're ready to truly live the now.